Greetings. This is Lev Manovich. I'm going to tell you about my image series, Ideal City, created in 2024. These are digital images created with Midjourney AI, even edited with Gigapixel AI, and also using Lightroom. After studying visual art, architecture, and filmmaking, I began creating digital art in 1984. For 4 decades, I've been making art, teaching, and theorizing about computer art tools. And since 2022, I have focused on the new medium of generative AI. Generative AI, like all media, has its own strengths and limitations. These tools often excel at generating visuals of popular subjects, for example, simulated photographs of imaginary faces, or maybe some beautiful landscapes, and also aesthetics, including simulation of styles of thousands of artists, architects, fashion designers, and architects. But often they struggle with unfamiliar concepts or particular subtle aesthetics, something new which never really existed, which you have in your head, and you're trying to get AI to do it. But what happens is that when you ask this tool to create something rare or non-existent, in my experience, we never say no, we never refuse, but often what we produce has a lower quality. Right? Maybe things are not spatially coherent, there are anatomical mistakes, maybe composition is not as balanced, right? So instead of this beautiful, amazing image you have in your head, you get something which is not as good, or the composition may also consist, if you look closely, from more generic stereotypical elements. In my Ideal City image series, and you see one of them behind me, I deliberately exploit this limitation of turning it into a creative opportunity rather than viewing it as a constraint. And this has been in general my strategy in using artistically AI tools, right? Saying, okay, if I want to get very particular subtle aesthetics, what the price I have to pay for this is AI will make images which will have mistakes. Maybe I can find particular subjects where the mistakes will look organic. In other words, the idea is to match this limitation of AI tools to particular subjects where it makes sense, right? So to put it differently, I exploit deliberately the imperfections produced by AI models, creating subjects where these imperfections appear organic and logical. And this particular image series is one such example. For the series, I imagine architecture designs for a new USSR city presented as models in 1960, the year of my birth. And I was born in Moscow, so I lived in USSR, in this late communist state, before migrating to New York in 1981. So this concept of this kind of modernist socialist architecture references the massive construction of apartment blocks across the country that began in the late 50s and continued for multiple decades. So millions of modernist socialist housing was built in these decades. These buildings, known affectionately today as panelki in Russian, and you can go to Instagram and you'll find hundreds of thousands of images of the actual buildings, across Russia and the kind of neighboring countries, which used to be part of the USSR, with hashtag panelki or similar. And I think today they symbolize both kind of failed communist utopia for older people, and perhaps nostalgia for a simpler, less complicated past for multiple generations. Now, in my images, typically pristine architecture models appear in a state of decay, as if showing how the buildings might look like decades after construction. So it's a kind of retroactive look at the 1960s and my childhood in the USSR, viewed from 2024. Using AI as a memory machine, I project the future state into the past. And I think with something else. The miniature scale of these imagined models also carries additional meanings. Like many artists, especially as I get older, I am drawn back to my childhood visual and spatial experiences. The small scale, right, of imaginary buildings and these imaginary models renders these memories particularly vulnerable and unstable. The physical imperfection and crudeness of these models, seemingly made from paper, at least this is what AI imagined them to be, right? Seemingly ready to be blown away if we just blow at them, perhaps can be seen as a metaphor for the vulnerability and awkwardness and uncanny feelings we may experience when confronting our personal history, the memories of our childhood, and our whole journey through time. Thank you.